we're going to shift to a new story, which is very interesting because it takes decision intelligence beyond supply chain. Now, we've been working on supply chain, manufacturing, finance, sales, but really with that big focus on supply chain, going across the value chain from day one. And one day, one of our good friends called me and said, he'd been working with us at Dell and said, hey, I think I've got something for you where I believe decision intelligence could be applied. And it's got nothing to do with supply chain. It's got nothing to do with what you know. I said, well, we built a decision intelligence platform. If you feed it different types of data, if you different types of intelligence, you're going to get still intelligence, recommendations, and ability to take decisions. So we're excited to introduce that new deployment, this new capability into a whole new area. And to drive that conversation, we'll invite Louis Peacock, our Chief Customer Officer, and our friend Joe Dery, the Vice President and Dean of Data Analytics, Computer Science, and Software Engineering, to talk about how decision intelligence is applied to higher education. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred, and welcome, Joe.
Thank you.
I think before I ask you to introduce yourself, I just want to make a quick comment about pioneers. You would have heard the word being used a few times, and I think, especially with where we are with the whole evolution of AI and decision intelligence, we need brave customers. We need pioneers to sort of go on the journey first. We need early adopters, and we also need sectors that are not that's sort of obvious in terms of the technology to adopt the technology and be a pioneer. And I think very much, Joe, see you as one of those pioneers, and look forward to the session and hearing a bit more about it.
Thank you.
So to kick off, Joe, I think let's go start beginning. Tell us a bit about yourself, your background, your role, and how you came to be at WGU.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. And it may be interesting thinking about having higher ed here at this Decision Intelligence Conference, and I didn't just walk in off the street because it looked like there was great coffee. We're here very intentionally, and I have a big smile when I watch that teaser reel because WGU is a beacon of innovation in the higher ed space. And I had the pleasure of working for big tech when I first started in my career before I came to WGU 2.5 years ago. And I worked for EMC as a hands-on keyboard data scientist. I eventually got to lead data science teams moving into business transformation and digital transformation at Dell. I got to experience this in sales, go-to-market, global business operations. I got a chance to do this in supply chain, working with Sasha, who you heard earlier today. And when I got the call to go to WGU, I was offered the chance to think about data analytics, computer science, and software engineering education for this amazing nonprofit university that I can't wait to tell you more about. And very early in that journey, I also got excited by the potential for decision intelligence in a space where DI hadn't quite made it into just yet.
Perfect. Thanks, Joe. So at the end, I think what the good sort of tie-in from commerce through to higher ed, I think is a great, it's always a great lead-in, and I think makes it a lot more relevant as well today in that context. So, I did a bit of research, obviously, before the session, and try to learn a bit more about Western Governors University. And I found quite a number of very unique characteristics of the institution. So do you mind sharing a little bit about why WGU is unique in the higher ed space for us. Yeah.
And it's an honor to be able to talk about WGU with you all today, especially with so many legendary companies being here. And WGU is legendary for its innovation. And the way that I want to paint that picture is by talking about the existing experience at a traditional higher ed institution today. So let's say, for example, you register for a course. You have to be on campus. Maybe it's Thursdays at 5 p.m. If you're a working professional, you now need to leave your job or your family, if maybe you're a single parent. You need to get in the car or whatever your public transport system is, get to campus. You got to sit in traffic. You got to sweat a little bit when you're in traffic, wondering if you're going to make it on time. You're going to run across campus in the sleet and the rain and the snow or the 80-degree weather that New York's having right now. And you're going to then sit in that classroom for a lecture that you potentially already know that material for. Or you're going to be sitting for an exam that potentially you're not ready for. Because traditional higher ed is really geared at everyone in a class in that particular cohort must follow a very set, rigid path. So back in 1997, 19 governors came together to form this nonprofit online institution right around the time the internet was really taking off. And it wanted to change some of those assumptions. So there is no classes that you need to be in at 5 p.m. on a Thursday, right? All the resources are available online. So if you want to study at 2 o'clock in the morning after you just work 2 shifts, awesome, go for it. If you want to study at 10 o'clock in the morning, awesome, go for it. It's all for you. And then when you're ready to take the assessment, there isn't a particular date for it. You can actually sign up when you're ready, even if that's day 1. So if you're coming in and you already know, for example, how to code in SQL, and it's an Intro to SQL course, test out. Take the assessment on the first day, see how you do, right? So you actually have the ability to accelerate your education. So we have 6-month terms, and in that, you can take as many courses as you can realistically get through. So we actually have a small portion of students that will finish a 4-year degree in 6 months because they actually move at the speed of their learning and demonstrating those competencies. Again, this is all done nonprofit. Right now, WGU has close to 180,000 students, fully online, primarily adult learners, and we just crossed 400,000 graduates since WGU's inception.
Wow, impressive. Very impressive. So I think with that flexibility comes, I'm sure, pretty big challenges in terms of how you run and operate an institution like that. So, specifically within higher ed and within WGU's context, can you tell us how you made the connection between decision intelligence and how it could be applicable to higher ed?
Oh, absolutely. And having spent more than a decade between EMC and Dell, when I first came in, it was really about learning the higher ed space, right? I had adjuncted before, but I had never been an administrator in that space. And I wanted to understand the experience. And because of WGU's flexibility, if you're an instructor, for example, say it's 8 o'clock in the morning, you have your cup of coffee, you have 300-400 students that are assigned to you, and you need to figure out who needs my help. Because you don't have that traditional students are going to come into the classroom every single day at these exact times. And you know that students may have been in the learning resources overnight. You may have some students that started that course that day. You may have other students who are already at the assessment phase and maybe they failed once and they need your help. And now you're figuring out, spending all that time trying to put all these digital breadcrumbs together to say, who do I help, how do I help, when do I help? And oh, by the way, by the time you go back at lunchtime after you then spend a few hours with students, your caseload has now changed because new students have added that course. Or some students have actually completed and they passed the assessment and they moved on, or other students have put it on the back burner to do later on in that 6-month term. So this ends up being this really interesting operational nightmare in a lot of ways. And our faculty today, our instructors, our mentors, our evaluators are truly amazing in being able to consume all of that data to highlight where they need to help. And as I'm looking at this, and through the partnership of Jenny Sanders, who's our VP of Instruction, and she co-sponsors this work with me, there was an opportunity here to think about this from a decision intelligence concept. So if you can start to organize all those digital breadcrumbs and start to anticipate, well, a student is on this particular path, and we think they're starting to go off track. Kind of sounds a little bit like an order potentially starting to go off track, right? And your fulfillment date in this case is not necessarily, a package arriving at your doorstep, unless you want to pretend it's a diploma arriving at your doorstep, right? And you can start thinking about how this supply chain of education, these unique pathways, these unique students, and how you can start to put all these resources in a way so you get to the right interventions at the right time. And that's how decision intelligence first came to be in this concept.
Okay. I mean, let's quickly rotate now to, or move on to how specifically you're implementing Aera at WGU in the first use case. So the student outcomes is obviously your main goal, and ensuring that you get there in the most efficient way possible, and obviously have I don't want to steal your thunder here, but obviously, go along that journey and structure how you do it. So give us a little bit of an idea of how you're going about the skill, what you're looking to achieve in this first step in the journey.
Yeah, I'd love to. And when I think about the roadmap, we want to bring a digital twin of the student experience to life. And ultimately, that'll go all the way from acquisition and interest all the way into alumni. But we're actually starting within a course right now, so a mini version of that twin. And in particular, we're looking at those points of time when students start to lose that motivation, which oftentimes leads to a drop, right? And that happens to be typically when you have your first assessment and you may fail. So WGU doesn't have traditional grades. We don't have A, B, C, D. We have competencies. And you have to demonstrate that competency, and that's kind of the equivalent of a B, B+ line. So if you come in and you're at what would have been the equivalent C level, you may get your first failure, it may be one of the first you've had, and you may immediately start thinking, this isn't for me. That is a critical point in time, and we want to be able to intervene. So our first skill is going to look at objective assessments. These are your traditional multiple choice, true, false type things. And we're actually going to say, okay, well, as a student is on the path to that assessment, when do we think they're off track a little bit? When do we think that they may not be ready to take it? When do we need that instructor intervention? Or when do we potentially want to deploy an autonomous intervention as the skill evolves? So for example, 3 o'clock in the morning, a student stuck on normalization or some other topic. Wouldn't it be great if an autonomous intervention was available? And then we inform the instructor first thing in the morning. This is what happened when you were hopefully sleeping and resting, right? And now that student is ready to have that conversation with you. So that first skill, as we go into the holidays, is going to come to life in what we like to consider a small pilot. A small pilot for us is 10,000 students, which most universities would be sweating a little bit from that. But at 180,000 students for WGU, that is a pilot for us. We have about 100 instructors that are going to participate in this, and we are going to learn as much as we can from them, from what they do to help every unique scenario, this scenario-based decision intelligence, right? To then replicate as much as we can, share those best practices, and help as many students as possible get to that successful first attempt.
I mean, fascinating. Again, we led as a software business, led by our customers to think about decision intelligence, broader, obviously, supply chains, where we started, where we're strong, but again, this really sort of pushes those boundaries, but it's decision-making end of the day. So, okay, so just to shift off, your Aera journey for a second, and looking at sort of the need and how AI is driving the sort of types of skills of the workplace for tomorrow. Quite curious as to hear a bit about how you see higher ed and WGU looking at how to address that gap that's opening up very quickly in terms of skills around AI and around DI.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And in addition to being able to work with Jenny and our EdTech teams on bringing this innovation to life, I am still a dean in the School of Technology, and I oversee data analytics, computer science, and software engineering with some amazing people. And we've been thinking about how do we start to really build decision intelligence skills more broadly. So even with co-pilots, for example, in software engineering, how do we bring more skills around design thinking, for example, and storytelling and business engagement, and helping folks that may not have the EQ that they need to find ways to counter that, to be able to get to where they need to be with the business. And if we go to the next slide, one of the things I'm so thrilled about, and this launched in August of this year, is we actually built a decision intelligence specialization, which I'm kind of bouncing in the chair right now because I'm so excited. So it took our existing masters in data analytics. So there's a 7-course core that really focuses on everything from business problem formation to data cleaning, to wrangling, to modeling, and so forth. And then adds a specialization on, first, technical product management. Second, process engineering. So you're mapping, you're mining, you're re-engineering. And then finally, a course on decision intelligence itself, which is all about cognitive psychology, decision processes, and being able to actually put a cognitive decision model together, which you can then say, how does the technology in the AI come into that? So in a lot of ways, it's starting to go from this AI tsunami that we have today. Like, I don't even call it a wave anymore. It is an AI tsunami. It's leaving a trail of destruction for a lot of companies. Half of these projects are getting killed. And it's stepping back to one of the theme we've been hearing a lot about, which is how do you focus in the decision-making process and bring people, technology, and process together in a harmonious way. And that's what we're trying to teach our students. So as folks are thinking about how to build out their centers of excellence, for example, I'm thrilled that we've been able to build this specialization. It's something that I think we need to educate the industry on, because outside of the folks that are watching right now and that are in the room who believe in decision intelligence, everyone else is distracted by that AI shiny thing, and they don't realize that it is that tsunami. And I think together as a community, we can really start to drive this thought process and this change of thinking.
I mean, it's phenomenal. For me, it's music to my ears. So in my position, helping to educate our customers, helping to implement Aera, we're already behind the curve in terms of skills and resources that we need, to help us along that journey. And quite interesting with your course, what you say when you complete this course, you can be a decision engineer. Is one of the sort of words you use, and then you describe the role, and that fits very, very well into Aera and into our implementation approach.
And this uses what makes WG unique, right? It's online, it's competency-based. You can do it after your work, do it at 3 o'clock in the morning, do it whenever works best for you. And
Perfect.
I just love the fact that it's going to fundamentally change the way people think.
It is, and the best software in the world is only as good as how you configure it, right? Is how you understand your business problem, how you translate that into the software and actually solve for that particular challenge. And I think this is a new space. I mean, digitizing decisions is not something that we're used to doing. We're used to making decisions all the time, but how you digitize it, how you put it into a platform like Aera is a new skill, and it has to be learnt. It has to be refined and grown, and again, hoping that many other higher ed bodies are going to adopt this approach, and also we would love to, as a vendor, we also would like to make our contents available to universities and start training just the way like SAP and various other vendors do the same thing, because this is coming, and this is coming fast, and I think the quicker we get this area covered, and as you said, it's process. It's that translation between the sort of technology and the business need that we need to fill. So just quickly wrapping up, Joe. Vision. Any thoughts of where you see it going in the next 3 to 5 years?
At this point, I've had the ability to lead decision intelligence solutions in 3 spaces. So supply chain. I also did it in sales compensation, which if you really want an interesting conversation later, talk to me about that one. And now in higher ed, to be able to drive student outcomes, there's also an impact of that has to do with closing equity gaps as well, because you're focusing on decision making and really these events that are happening in the moment. And the one thing that I've learned is that decision intelligence really applies everywhere. Every domain I've had the ability to get into, DI makes sense.
Well, thank you, Joe. Appreciate that. Thanks for sharing your insights, and I think thanks for also raising the fact that it's that the skills are as important as the technology, and again, we need to bring those together and develop them at an equal pace. So thanks again, and I'll hand back to Fred and Folia to end the day for us.
Thanks, Lloyd.
Thank you.